There's plenty of drama floating around Kansas City and its wide receiver core. What's real and what isn't? Well, D-Hop might be real, he might not. We're going to talk about that, as well as the philosophy and what has changed so far in this offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It is Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free on any and all comers. We hope that and appreciate that you've made this your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen, because we are all over the place. Get liked and subbed over on YouTube as well as all the audio platforms, because that's where you can hear it drop first. A lot to talk about because this is an ongoing saga, but it also has a pinch to do with what the team's philosophy is now that they've made it through the first couple waves of free agency. We're going to get into the specifics. Does D-Hop show up? Do you have to make up for the loss of Mecole Hardman, who just signed with another team today? I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, home of the Athletic Matrix that gives you all the athleticism needs that you have for this draft. You can find it at rogueapc.com. Check that out, as well as NFL33.com and RGR Football.
And I'm Chris Clark. Thank you all for listening. I am from Chiefs Corner. There is a lot to talk about when you start looking at wide receivers and really what it's going to mean for a couple of different teams and how Kansas City could maybe address that position going forward.
Absolutely. Now, something strange happened today, and we're going to talk about DeAnthony Hopkins, and there's drama there too. Let's not pretend that wide receivers aren't a little bit of divas all the way around, but I didn't think that Mecole Hardman was going to end up signing with another team. That did happen today. And it set off kind of this domino effect. I think that the reason that Mecole had not been signed until this point was because of the injury. And for those who think that the Chiefs had decided that they were walking away from him, I don't think that's actually true. I feel like they were letting him find out his market, and if he didn't come up with an offer, they'd bring him back on a very, very light kind of contract. Do you disagree? Was he never going to be back in Kansas City?
No, I do think that they were possibly looking at bringing him back. I think that would have made a lot of sense if he wasn't going to find a market out there with any other team. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be somebody that we're going to end up talking a lot about just because it's what's going on right now, and there's so much that's going on with him and with the wide receiver market overall. And one of the domino effects of Mecole going to the Jets is they also traded Elijah Moore to the Cleveland Browns.
Now, this is interesting because not only is it replacing a speed option with a speed option, I would argue that Moore's route tree is probably a little bit more developed. I would argue that Mecole is a little bit more explosive and has a little bit more versatility to him in terms of jet sweep stuff, low drag stuff, not just the sevens, nines, corners, posts, goes kind of guy. But that said, it's nearly a 1-for-1. So they trade out Moore, send him to Cleveland, where Juan Thornhill has been trying to get Mecole to sign for this whole time. And so it gives you that option that there may have been multiple suitors for Mecole. But I think in this particular offense, I think Mecole's he might be luckier than Orlando Brown to go from playing with Patrick Mahomes to what we expect to be is an all-or-nothing deal from Aaron Rodgers to play in New York, and now Mecole will have another Hall of Fame quarterback throwing to him. That, I think, bodes well for his 1 year, because that's all he has in New York, to kind of get back on track. Do you see it that way?
Well, it's going to be a really crowded wide receiver room. Garrett Wilson's already there. They signed Allen Lazard. It sounds like they're still looking at OBJ. So if that happens, you're looking at Mecole being maybe the fourth wide receiver. And there's other guys still there, Denzel Mims, Corey Davis, or a couple other wide receivers. That wide receiver room already has a lot of players there. So where he's going to fit in is going to be interesting. He did look like he talked on social media. Adam Schefter came out and talked about how Mecole was going to be there to run jet sweeps, and Mecole didn't really like that too much. He made his feelings known on that, about that's going to be way more than just jet sweeps.
Yeah, and hey, kudos to him. He's got to stake his claim now, I think, for his career. But it also tells you that I think the Chiefs had a role for him. I don't know if he was interested in that role. That role now probably goes to Sky Moore, at least in partial. Maybe it is a rotation there. I don't think that it's done. We're going to talk about what the philosophy is of building the wide receiver room here in a minute. But first, a lot of rumor, and we've talked about it extensively because DeAndre Hopkins has been rumored to be talking with the Chiefs, talking trade, even though 2 weeks ago, we didn't think that it necessarily was a fit for the offense because he would take adjustments that we haven't seen Patrick and Andy make. Now, as of Wednesday afternoon, little bit more drama. Looks like, a sly social media presence hinting at the Buffalo Bills. Is that a ploy? Does it matter? Or is this rethinking what might have been a stretch in the first place?
It's hard to know. I think Kansas City's interested in DeAndre Hopkins, but it's going to be a question of whether or not it's at the right price. They're not going to overpay in draft compensation, and they're not going to overpay in salary. And one of the things that Hopkins comes with is he missed 6 games last year to a suspension, and I think he's missed 11 other games in the past 2 years with injuries. And so, if you're going to be on the hook for $19 million, which is what his salary is supposed to be this year, that comes with questions.
It does. And expectations to boot. That is pretty significant, to tell you the truth. So it's still not a done deal. There's still talk about both the veterans that everybody wants in Kansas City in terms of D-Hop and OBJ. We'll see if that comes down. But what does the Mecole loss and all this drama bring you to? It's about resetting what the Chiefs are going to do in the wide receiver room this year. We're going to get into how do they move forward, what is their plan, and maybe they're already executing on their plan, and we're just the last to know here. But we're going to get to that right after this. A message from our friends at FanDuel, because everything is heating up now. You're getting into March Madness in the next rounds. There's all kinds of other sports going on that you can get in the action on, including the NBA. Right now is the best time to go download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and get in the action, because new customers right now are getting a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 bonus dollars applied in bonus bets to your account if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use, and you can get everything there. You can do triples. You can get points in the paint, maybe offensive fouls. I like that one. That's one of my favorites. You can roll that into a same-game parlay and really make your payout bigger just by getting in the action now. I actually look at those boards and the offensive fouls in particular. I think that's something that the lines are fun on. Don't miss out your chance to see that no-sweat first bet for up to $1,000 in bonus bets. When you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, you can see it right here. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the NFL. Every moment should be more, and making it more means having targets for Patrick Mahomes. How they move forward is the question here. Another little thing popped up. I got asked a question on a live stream the other night over on RGR about Justin Ross, and I made a very specific comment. I won't have anything to say until I see something of him. And I hadn't seen anything. He hadn't been on social media. Then the next day, Justin, I'm glad you were listening, or maybe some of your people were listening, but he put something out. Justin Ross is working out again. And I think that brings back into focus the fact that, yes, you can make all these big moves, these considerations for veteran players, but you have to have guys at all levels of the spectrum, from experience and from skill level and talent. So I think there's still a way forward that even if neither of these moves work out with D-Hop or OBJ, that the Chiefs are moving forward with their plan to have a wide receiver core and not a wide receiver one with a bunch of support.
I think you're right, and I think that what you look at over the past couple of seasons is they've rebuilt specific rooms. They rebuilt the O-line room 2 years ago. They rebuilt CB, and we didn't even really see CB coming last year. They had corners that we thought that they were going to have. We thought that they might add 1 or 2, but they added 3. Technically, I mean, I guess you could say 4 if you count Najee Johnson as a corner, as a special teams guy. But you're looking at a situation where they're specifically attacking positional groups. And right now, with the way they're headed into the draft, they're in a situation where everybody's going to be looking at them to go get a wide receiver, and maybe they're going to. Maybe they're going to trade up and go get somebody that they think is going to be a star. I mean, that's possible. We heard we saw a lot of smoke last year about the Chiefs being interested in Jameson Williams. So we'll see whether or not they're actually going to be interested in trying to go move up to go get a guy that they think is going to be special in this wide receiver group. because I can't imagine Brett Veach is going to go into this season and give Mahomes less weapons than he's had in the past.
That's my thought as well. And I'm just looking up here because I want to get the numbers. I don't have the results of Jackson Smith and Jigba today. It was the big Ohio State Pro Day. CJ Stroud really impressing with his smooth accuracy, which is something he ran for a while.
He ran a 4.53 if you're curious about the 40.
Okay, I'm glad because I was looking for the 10 split myself. But combined with his change of direction, Jackson Smith and Jigba is plenty of athlete. I know people are concerned about his long speed. I don't care. 4.53 is fast enough for me. I don't think that precludes the Chiefs from going after him. I don't know that it makes him more of a target, or if they feel they have a better chance for him to fall down towards where they can pick him up. But this is clear to me. No matter what happens with DeAndre Hopkins and Odell Beckham, wrong Beckham there. Whatever happens with them, there is a bigger plan at play here. And I believe that is piecing guys into roles with some kind of dynamicism that they bring that's unique to them, whether it's contested catches from D-Hop, whether it's route running from OBJ, whether it's his sheer quickness and ability to run routes in a way, even at 4.53, that Jackson Smith and Jigba brings to the table that allows him to make plays. I think that all adds to the collective of what the Chiefs have in Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and MBS, and we'll see who else ends up back on this roster.
Yeah, and then you start looking at the other guys that they still have. John Ross, they had a ton of speed with John Ross. Whether or not he's going to be able to do anything next year, we'll see. Again, that goes back to the same thing you said about Justin Ross and whether or not he's going to be able to do anything with the Chiefs this coming season. Only the Chiefs know what they have in those two guys. So we're not going to see anything. I would expect that both of those guys are going to be down, probably practicing with Patrick right after the draft would be my guess. And any additional wide receivers that the Chiefs bring in will be down there as well, I would imagine as well. But you sit here and you look at it, and something else came out today, and I got to find the tweet, but it was from Warren Sharp. And he was talking about how, and I know we're talking about wide receiver, but I think that this actually plays into it as well. Warren Sharp is talking about most receiving yards in the NFL since 2015, Travis Kelce. But he ranks 20th in receiver earnings during that span. He and all top tight ends are underpaid. They remain a huge efficiency edge for savvy teams. Top 5 tight ends make 14.9 a year. The top 5 wide receiver makes 27.4. So ton of efficiency if you can add another tight end. And the reason I bring this all up is you were looking at what is classified by a lot of people as a historic tight end class. Mm-hmm. Kansas City did really well playing in a 12 in 12 personnel or 13 personnel last year. This would be a year that they could go and they could add a tight end that could possibly become a replacement for Travis Kelce down the line. And that gives them the ability to maybe wait at the wide receiver position a little bit longer, because this class isn't seen as being a great class. It's an okay class, but it's not a great class.
And that brings me back to, like, what do you specifically bring as an individual? And I actually I just heard back from a stopwatch guy that I do trust and had him at 4.48. So Jackson Smith and Jigba right around the 4.5. Either way, if he were to break into the 4.4 as official, I think that probably boosts him out of the range that the Chiefs want to go. But I think, especially now with Jawan Taylor in house, I think tackle certainly on the table, but I think wide receiver is as well.
I would almost disagree that it's out of the range of what Kansas City wants to go. And the reason I say that is because what makes JSN such a great receiver is the way he runs routes and the way he's able to get open. That's something Kansas City doesn't have a lot of on their team right now. And to me, that is valuable and something that if they add, that really can open things up for other players on this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. My only caution is that with a sub 4.5, I think that puts a lot of other teams more on his radar that are up above the Chiefs. Like, I think they would have to trade up farther is my point.
No, and I get that. I'm just saying, if they really wanted to go get a guy last year, are they going to wait 2 years in a row?
I certainly hope not. That would be bad. I mean, it's interesting, though, because when you get into this discussion, JSN's success probably makes Jordan Addison more available Now, he's got a body type that's a lot more like what the Chiefs have. So there's not that diversity that we're talking about in growing out your wide receiver core. But he also today at the USC Pro Day ran a 4.5 flat. And he also has sub 7.3 cone and has the ability to disengage from coverage. And I think that's important. I still have Jordan Addison as the best route runner in this class. Best wide receiver. He is at the top of my board above JSN by a smidge. And I think that's important to remember because all the hype goes in one direction. And if the teams follow that, the Chiefs do have an opportunity to take that philosophy of plucking different types of receivers at different talent levels from different sources, whether it's a trade, whether it's the free agency thing, and now looking at the draft. I'm comfortable with that. That doesn't give me concern because I think what last year proved is that they can have an entourage, what do you call that? An ensemble cast and still, make the movie work is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that they have, as long as you have Patrick Mahomes driving the ship, I think you're going to be fine. There are going to be other questions that we still need to get answered on this Chiefs roster. Right tackle is one of them. If you think Taylor's going to play right at left, and that seems to be the case right now, draft could change that. We'll see. They still need defensive end help. You're always going to probably need defensive end help. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality of the NFL. But one of the other positions that we haven't talked about at all is backup QB. They don't have another veteran on this roster. It's just Shane Buechele at this point, and Chris Aludakun, I think, is the other guy that they have on the roster. So they're still going to have to make some additions there. I would imagine they're going to bring in another vet at some point.
That kind of leads me down that path as well. But, I didn't see Drew Tranquil coming, so there might be something else that I don't see coming. Maybe it's a draft quarterback. There's a couple of day 3 guys that I kind of like. We should probably talk about them. But let's look at the non-sexy picks that Chiefs are going to be able to make in this draft to fill out this philosophy of combining skill levels. We'll do that after this. So you bring up a very good point. There's a couple of bodies in Kansas City. I think Buechele does make the roster. Maybe it's a veteran. Maybe the money is an issue because they have paid their backup veterans pretty well over the years. Do you think that is a concern in a place where now that it's getting a little bit tight, maybe that's where they have to pinch some pennies?
I don't think so. I don't think that. I think that if you look at what they've done with veterans over the past couple of years, they know how valuable that can be. You can say what you want about paying Chad Henne the money that you paid him over the past couple of seasons, but he stepped in the biggest moments and delivered. And say what you want, but I'd say that's probably worth $2 million a year at least, if not more.
I agree. I'm really intrigued by a couple of prospects at the quarterback spot that are going to be day 3 guys. At least that's my expectation. Among them are some guys that Dorian Thompson Robinson is going to be a name that people know because he's had a long career at UCLA. He's been successful. He's very thin, but he's a mobile quarterback, and I like the change of gears that would bring as a potential backup to Patrick Mahomes. I don't know that that's the direction that they want to go. I feel like they want more of a flat-out leader type, and that brings me to 2 guys, and I want your opinion from what you've seen. Clayton Tune from Houston has been a guy that has been very, very, very adamant about how he drives his offense forward with his personal play, and I like that aspect of it. Stetson Bennett has been a guy that has reaped the benefits of being in a Georgia offense with a lot of targets, but just has a chip on his shoulder. Do you think either of those guys could fit into a quarterback room in Kansas City?
They could fit into a quarterback room, and the thing that I don't know, and this is kind of where I'm stuck in this scenario, is I do think that they want to look at getting younger QB in some ways, and maybe Buechele is not going to be their guy. Maybe they're going to bring in a veteran and they're going to go draft a guy in the 3rd day and try to develop somebody. I personally think that they're going to be looking for somebody that they think can step in and play and win them a game or 2. And are you really going to trust that to be a rookie in the 5th or 6th or 7th round, or Shane Buechele at this point? That's where I'm really kind of struggling with that thought process.
I think that's fair, but I do think also that it is, of all years, this offseason feels to me like it is a philosophical over specific talent kind of year, in that they need everyone to fit into their plan, and I do think the backup quarterback is a piece of that.
Yeah, and they have a plan. They've seen what they've done on defense, and quite frankly, at this point, your defense is pretty set at 2 levels. at the back two levels. I think you're set pretty much a linebacker. Could you draft another linebacker? Yeah, maybe if you want to get a guy that you think can step in and play special teams, maybe you do that. I think you've got your third safety. I'm not going to say it doesn't preclude them from taking another safety because you're going to need 4. So that wouldn't shock me. But you're not going to probably be spending high picks on those positions. Now, where you could spend a higher pick and bringing a guy back like Noddy, like they did a couple of days ago, kind of precludes you maybe from taking a DT high unless somebody falls into your lap that you didn't expect to be there. Your options, I'm not going to say that they're limited in the first and second round, but they're becoming smaller and smaller because you're going to want a first or second round guy generally to be a guy that you think is going to be able to step in and start in year 1 or year 2. And in most situations, maybe that's defensive end, maybe that's tackle, maybe that's wide receiver. The rest of them, it's a big question mark. You can make an argument that even going early with a tight end could be considered a starter with the way that the Chiefs did a 12 package and a 13 package last year. And if they're going to go to it even more going forward, you could make an argument there, but I still don't think that's the direction they go.
I don't either. I think that's just a luxury that is a little bit too far out there given the depth of this class and where you can get guys that can fit into your roles. Obviously, knowing that Travis Kelce is going to be your starter. But I like what you bring up there because it does open up the doors in terms of, is Derek Nottie really crossing them off? Because there are a lot of prospects that I think are worth the 31st pick that will be available there. And I think there's a few others that are being mocked really, really high right now that are actually going to be available at 31 as well. The interior pass rush seems to be a place where maybe they can make something up because Derek Nottie didn't bring any. He didn't go out and pick up pass rush while he was gone. Derek Nottie still the same player.
No, and that's absolutely true. But the question becomes, you have Chris Jones in house. I don't think that he's going to be going anywhere. I expect that he's going to be playing in Kansas City the next several years. So are you going to bring in a guy that can go and start next to Chris Jones and provide interior pass rush? Maybe. Is there going to be somebody there that you really want? Maybe, but that's not really a premium position. It is a position that could be there at 31, but it's not more of a premium position like a tackle could be or a wide receiver could be, or like what Kansas City did last year and taking a CB and a D end.
Agreed. Yeah, I still think that it is below that. I think the value, I think there's more likely a player that the Chiefs grade as a first-round selection available at D tackle than there is a D end when it comes to their pick, unless they move up, obviously. So we're going to talk about some of those because I do want to talk about scenarios that move outside of our norm and see what they might be able to adapt to. We'll talk about the defense. We'll talk about where you could pick up extra tackles as well. Those are very important guys. That will be our show tomorrow. I think we have a good plan for the rest of the week. Hope that you guys will make sure that you join it. Remember, we are 5 days a week here, folks. We cover this team from so many aspects. It's difficult to do it in a show. So we try to make sure that we move it around. So make sure you come back tomorrow. Get subbed on YouTube. Hit that like and the sub and the bell. That'll get you notified when we do go live with our newest release. And that is the best way to do it. So thanks for your time today. Thanks for being here and make your next listen here. Thanks for making us your first. Maybe the NFL scouting show. I think you might enjoy that. It is draft time, so get after it. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.